Why does a strong man slowly feel smaller, quieter, and unsure of himself, without ever remembering the moment it began? It never starts with chaos. It starts with subtle shifts, a look that lingers too long, a comment that sounds like concern but lands like judgment, a tone that makes you question yourself, even when you did nothing wrong. At first, you brush it off. You tell yourself it's normal. You tell yourself love requires patience. But something inside you starts to shrink, and you don't notice it happening. This kind of damage doesn't announce itself. It seeps in, day by day, word by word. You begin to explain yourself more than you used to. You hesitate before speaking. You replay conversations in your head, wondering if you said something wrong. Peace slowly leaves the room, and tension takes its place. Not because you are weak, but because constant pressure rewires the mind. A man is built to create, to lead, to protect, to grow. But when emotional safety disappears, the nervous system shifts into survival. Confidence doesn't die overnight, it erodes. You start choosing silence over conflict, compliance over authenticity. You stop trusting your instincts, because every instinct seems to be punished. The strongest men are often the ones most affected, because they endure longer than they should. Toxic behavior often wears a friendly mask. It pretends to be honesty, it pretends to be care, it pretends to be love. But underneath, it chips away at self-belief. You feel watched, measured, judged. You feel like your value is conditional, based on how well you meet expectations that keep changing. Over time, your inner voice gets quieter, while doubt gets louder. This is how the man inside begins to disappear, not through shouting, but through constant emotional friction. Not through violence, but through invalidation. When your emotions are dismissed, when your efforts are minimized, when your presence is tolerated instead of respected, something fundamental breaks. You don't lose your strength. You forget where you placed it. Psychologically, the brain adapts to pain by normalizing it. The unfamiliar feels dangerous. The familiar feels safe, even if it hurts. That's why the erosion goes unnoticed. You don't wake up one day destroyed. You wake up tired, drained, less driven than before. And you wonder where the fire went. But here's the truth most men never hear. Awareness is the beginning of power. The moment you can name the pressure, it loses its grip. The moment you understand the pattern, you step out of confusion and into clarity. And clarity is dangerous to anything that thrives on control. If you stay until the end of this video, you will gain something most men spend years searching for: a clear understanding of what's happening beneath the surface, and the first step toward reclaiming the man you were before doubt moved in. Once awareness begins, the pattern becomes clearer. Control rarely arrives as domination. It arrives as concern. It sounds soft. It feels reasonable. It often begins with phrases that seem harmless, even caring. Questions that feel like interest. Advice that feels supportive. But slowly, those words start shaping your behavior. Control works best when it convinces you it's for your own good. When your decisions are questioned just enough to make you doubt them. When your boundaries are tested under the label of closeness. You start adjusting, not because you want to, but because resistance feels exhausting. You choose peace in the moment, not realizing you are trading long-term self-respect for short-term calm. Psychologically, this is how autonomy is weakened. A man needs freedom to feel alive, freedom to think, freedom to choose, freedom to fail and grow. When every choice is monitored, corrected, or emotionally punished, the brain learns a dangerous lesson: expression equals conflict. So you reduce yourself, you filter your words, you shrink your needs. Conditional affection is one of the strongest tools of control: warmth when you comply, distance when you don't. The human mind is wired to seek connection, so it adapts. You try harder, you explain more, you give in faster. Over time, you stop asking whether something feels right and start asking whether it will upset someone else. That's not love. That's training. Control also hides behind guilt. You're made to feel selfish for wanting space, ungrateful for setting limits, weak for expressing discomfort. Slowly, responsibility for the emotional climate is placed entirely on your shoulders. If there is tension, it must be your fault. If there is silence, you must fix it. This weight drains energy, focus, and confidence. A controlled man is not a broken man. He is an exhausted one. His strength is being redirected inward, spent on managing emotions instead of building his life. Ambition fades, not because desire is gone, but because mental bandwidth is consumed. When survival replaces growth, dreams are postponed. The most dangerous part is how normal it begins to feel. When control is consistent, it becomes familiar. And familiarity tricks the mind into accepting conditions it would once reject. You stop seeing the cage because you helped decorate it. You call it compromise. You call it loyalty. You call it love. But real love expands you. It does not narrow your world. It does not make you afraid of being yourself. It does not require the loss of your voice. Control feeds on silence, on hesitation, on your willingness to doubt yourself instead of questioning the pressure placed on you. The moment you recognize control for what it is, its power weakens. Because control survives in confusion, clarity restores choice, and choice is the foundation of strength. When control becomes routine, the damage moves deeper. It no longer stays in conversations or decisions. It enters the mind. Confidence, once natural, starts to feel unfamiliar. You remember being decisive, bold, certain. Now hesitation feels safer than action. Not because you lack ability, but because confidence has been punished too many times. Criticism becomes constant, even when it's subtle. A sigh, a comparison, a reminder of what you should be instead of who you are. Over time, the brain absorbs these signals and reshapes identity around them. You stop seeing yourself as capable. You start seeing yourself as a problem that needs fixing. That shift is powerful, and it's destructive. Psychologically, identity is built through reinforcement. When effort is ignored and flaws are highlighted, the mind concludes that nothing you do is enough. Motivation fades, pride disappears. You still function, but you no longer feel alive. You're present but disconnected. Existing, not expanding. This is where ambition begins to die. Not loudly, quietly. You stop planning, you stop dreaming, you stop pushing forward. Not because you're lazy, but because hope feels risky. Every goal feels like another opportunity to fail in someone else's eyes. So you aim lower. You expect less. You protect yourself by shrinking your vision. A man without confidence starts seeking permission for things he once decided naturally. He second-guesses his instincts. He doubts his worth. And the most painful part is that he begins to believe this version of himself is the truth. That he changed because he deserved it. That he lost strength because he never had it. This belief is the deepest wound. Identity loss doesn't look dramatic. It looks like silence, like compliance, like emotional numbness. You laugh less, you speak less, you feel less. The fire that once pushed you forward now barely flickers, and yet, somewhere inside, there's still awareness, a quiet discomfort, a sense that this isn't who you were meant to become. That discomfort matters. It's the last signal of the man inside you, the part that remembers strength, the part that resists being erased. As long as that awareness exists, identity is not gone, it is buried, and anything buried can be uncovered. Confidence doesn't return through arguments or approval. It returns through truth, through recognizing what was taken from you slowly, through separating who you are from what you were conditioned to believe. The moment you see the pattern clearly, the illusion begins to crack. Even when the weight becomes unbearable, walking away feels harder than staying. Not because the pain is invisible, but because the mind has already adapted to it. Once a man has invested his time, energy, and identity, leaving feels like erasing a part of himself. So he remains, even as something inside him continues to crack. Hope keeps the door closed. The memory of how things once felt becomes a powerful anchor. The mind replays those early moments and convinces itself they can return. If you try harder, if you stay patient, if you become more understanding, this belief keeps you trapped in effort without reward, chasing a past that no longer responds. Duty adds another layer. Men are taught to endure, to carry responsibility silently, to fix problems instead of fleeing them. Pain becomes something to manage, not escape. Endurance starts to feel like character. Leaving starts to feel like weakness. So you choose to stay strong in the wrong way, confusing suffering with strength. Fear also shapes the decision. Fear of emptiness, fear of loneliness, fear of the unknown. The familiar discomfort feels safer than the risk of rebuilding. Psychologically predictable pain feels controllable, while change feels dangerous. Even when staying hurts, it feels certain, and certainty feels safer than hope. Over time, self-sacrifice becomes routine. You give up opinions, desires, and boundaries without noticing how much you've lost. You start measuring your worth by how much you can tolerate. You tell yourself this is maturity, that this is what commitment looks like. Slowly, you stop asking what you need and focus only on what keeps the peace. Emotional attachment clouds clarity. Logic fades. Red flags turn into excuses. You protect the situation more than you protect yourself. The cost feels invisible at first, but it accumulates. Energy drains. Motivation weakens. Life feels smaller. Not because you chose less, but because you adapted to too little. Staying does not mean you failed. It means you care deeply. But care without balance becomes self-abandonment. And the pain you feel is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that something inside you still remembers who you were meant to be. That awareness is not weakness. It is the beginning of separation from what has been silently destroying you. That awareness you feel is not accidental. It exists because something inside you refused to disappear. Even after silence, even after doubt, even after years of carrying weight that was never meant to be yours alone. The man you were did not die. He was covered. Buried under adaptation, fear, and emotional survival. Reclaiming yourself does not begin with confrontation. It begins with honesty. The kind that happens alone without excuses. The moment you admit that peace has been missing, that your voice has been muted, that your needs have been ignored. Truth is uncomfortable, but it is also freeing. It breaks the spell of confusion. Strength returns when boundaries return. Not aggressive walls, but clear lines. Lines that protect your energy, your values, your identity. You don't need permission to need space. You don't need approval to choose respect. A man does not become selfish by honoring himself. He becomes grounded. Psychologically, self-respect rewires the nervous system. When you stop betraying your instincts, confidence begins to rebuild. Slowly, quietly, you start trusting yourself again. Decisions feel lighter. The constant tension fades. You breathe deeper. You stand straighter. Not because everything is fixed, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. Letting go of chaos feels familiar at first. Peace can feel empty when you've lived in noise. But emptiness is not loss. It is space. Space to rebuild ambition. Space to remember what excites you. Space to reconnect with purpose. Growth requires room, and you cannot grow where you are constantly shrinking. Reclaiming the man inside also means releasing guilt. Guilt for staying too long. Guilt for not seeing the signs earlier. That guilt serves no purpose now. You acted with the tools you had at the time. Awareness arrived when you were ready to receive it. There is no shame in survival. There is only responsibility in awakening. The strongest shift happens when you stop asking why someone treated you a certain way, and start asking why you accepted it. That question does not judge you, it empowers you. It returns control to where it belongs. You were never meant to be managed, monitored, or diminished. You were meant to build, to lead your life, to grow without fear of being yourself. The man you are searching for is not somewhere else. He is waiting beneath the layers you were forced to wear. And the moment you choose peace over chaos, truth over comfort, and self-respect over survival, that man begins to rise.